From Wickenburg, the West's most western town, to Monument Valley, where John Wayne said, "So this is where God put the West." Arizona is cowboy country.
We have cowboy in our blood.
And larger than life, embedded in American history and culture. Arizona has always been center stage, romanced through books and campfire stories.
It's like there's a million stories in the city, and there's a million stories in this business too,
And song.
When my rambling's over.
Let's face it, at some point, we have all wanted to grow up to be cowboys or cowgirls.
Now, I've got to say, yeah, it was kind of more of a man's world maybe in the earlier years, but that's all changed.
Has it ever?
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell, and today on Arizona Highways,
we are experiencing the cowboy way of life, the look, the aesthetic, and the mystique. Being a cowboy may be something that's revered around the world, but here in Arizona, it's just life as we know it. Thousands of acres of Sonoran Desert. It's Arizona's wide open range for every kind of cowboy, by right.
Heck, this country was settled by all our families. We have cowboy in our blood.
Or by fantasy.
We all turn into cowboys and cowgirls for 7 days, and we just love it here.
Rancho de los Caballeros in Wickenburg is one Arizona ranch where city slickers tend to find their soul.
When they first get here, they're all uptight, and they're running, they're worrying about their cell phone, and they're pulling their laptops out, and then all of a sudden, towards the end of the week, you can kind of see, the attitude changing.
And trade in their daily ride for a different kind of horsepower.
They get on a horse, and they're used to driving their sports car 100 miles an hour or wherever they're going to the next meeting. And they get on these horses, and it don't go much more than, well, I don't know how to time it. It helps them calm down a little bit, they relax. The horses can help people do that.
Where you can learn to be a weekend wrangler.
Here comes the same 3 cows that came up last time. Go fishing.
Get that notch in your belt and have an experience to hang your hat on.
2 years ago, I did a little loping. Now I'm full-time loping.
Year after year.
I live in Westport, Connecticut, and look forward to coming out to Arizona every spring break. Would never even suggest an alternate vacation for my family.
Rancho de los Caballeros has represented the true West now for 7 decades. As a lifestyle,
my favorite thing to do out here is to ride. Getting up in the morning, going out on the range, and that sounds like cowboy talk, doesn't it? Out on the range.
And as a profession.
You learn to respect the business, which is good fun.
And after 3 or 4 days,
I almost feel like a cowgirl, not quite, but I'm getting there, I think.
While these folks maybe guess, many feel hitting these trails is like coming home.
I think it's the tranquility of the desert, frankly. We have a very busy lifestyle, live outside of New York, real busy metropolitan area. I can totally relax in Arizona. I completely forget about work, all the things we have to get done. And of course, the sunshine doesn't hurt either.
In northwestern Arizona, it's a different kind of cowboy experience, steeped in the tradition of the first settlers.
Grand Canyon West Ranch is 106,000 acres of beautiful territory, 5 miles from the west rim of the Grand Canyon.
It's almost a wilderness experience in rugged territory that takes some true grit to get into.
The West Rim still is very remote. Very few people know about the West Rim of the Grand Canyon. What I love about it is it's very inhospitable. It's very hard to get to.
And speaking of color, the ranch's sunset horseback ride is spectacular.
We go up onto a spectacular mountain. You can see 100 miles in every direction, all these beautiful mountains.
And of course, a ride at dusk wouldn't be complete without a champagne toast, followed by a true cowboy campfire.
Our entertainers get everyone to start joining in, start singing, asking what songs they like to hear. You get the children joining in. It's a time when families really get to know each other again and really bond together.
You just might find that the desire to live like a cowboy is a fire that's hard to put out.
It's just a thing that you just start doing and you just can't quit doing it.
Welcome Arizona Highways. Arizona Highways TV.
Don't call Casey Adams a singer-songwriter.
We're glad to have you as guests here today.
He's that all right, but much more. He is a cowboy crooner, telling the stories of the West through music. A guitar and a harmonica accompany his lyrics, which tell of life riding through the desert.
I've just been a strolling music man. I hope all my friends can understand that what I sing, it's not always planned. Sometimes it comes from deep down inside me.
And he's not the only crooner.
Arizona highway, 4 corners to Mexico. They can set my spirit wandering.
Cowboys across the state sing about life in Arizona.
When my rambling's over and I've lost the urge to roam,
And the love they have for our state.
these Arizona highways will always bring me home.
My family started coming out to this ranch in 1961 when I was 3, and I fell in love with it.
Caroline Markham is a real full-time cowgirl.
When I finally made my first full trail ride at age 8, I looked out on this desert and I said, this is where I want to be.
But then came college and graduate school and, well, life. Caroline eventually decided it was time to get back in the saddle. After working at a couple of ranches in Wyoming and Montana, she finally got hired on here at Rancho de los Caballeros in 1992.
Now, I've got to say, yeah, it was kind of more of a man's world maybe in the earlier years, but that's all changed. It's less accepted. I mean, you know, it's okay for a little boy to dream about, you know, growing up and being Roy Rogers, and I didn't ever think I wanted to be Dale Evans. I wanted to be sort of, you know, a little more Annie Oakley with a little horse bed on the side.
Cowgirl isn't the only hat Caroline wears. She is also a singer. She studied opera, classical music, and has wrangled 3 Grammy Awards, including 2 with the Phoenix Choral. Since being in Arizona, she's also gone a little country.
When I moved out here, I took up the guitar and I started singing classic Western music and country and folk music.
Whether she's on the world stage or back here at the ranch, Caroline has earned respect and admiration from her horses.
If you can get an 1,100 or 1,200 pound animal to treat you like a good friend, you've really accomplished something.
Caroline also enjoys showing other women the ropes and seeing them become more in touch with their inner cowgirls.
You see a lot of gals come out of that city shell. You know, talk about, you know, getting dirt under your fingernails or not having your hair perfect. I mean, you know, these gals that, you know, come the first day in full makeup with full jewelry, you know, they're learning to leave that back in the room after maybe day 2 or 3. But, you know, a couple of margaritas in the evening and, you know, they all loosen up and, you know, we tell jokes and have a good girl fun time.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
There are some things in life that are universal. Regardless of the year you were born, city, state, even country, chances are when you were a little boy or girl, you wanted to be a cowboy or cowgirl. And this love affair with the cowboy way of life was born out of the Great Western.
In 1939, Columbia Studios decided to film a movie based on the book called Arizona.
Director Wesley Ruggles had fallen in love with the old Pueblo while filming scenes for the movie Cimarron in 1930. So they set about building a replica of 1860s Tucson.
At the time, there was nothing out here. To build the set, they allocated $150,000. They had a map of Tucson from 1864. They hired 30 laborers, 180 carpenters, 120 bricklayers.
The movie Arizona starred William Holden and Jean Arthur. At the time, the film set a new standard for the way Westerns were shot.
I believe it set a real benchmark. Prior to that, most sets were just false fronts. They stuck them up, they put a camera there, people came and stood in front of them and said lines. This was a set where they could actually ride through a town, they could pan the camera and you would see three-dimensionally up one street, down another street.
After the film, for a while, old Tucson was forgotten. But when a slew of Western films dominated the mid-40s and 50s, it came back to life.
Movie companies come out here, they had a perfectly good Western set they could use. And during their tenure from 1945 to 1959, 31 movies were made here. Gene Autry, Randolph Scott, John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Ronald Reagan, Greer Garson, I mean, on and on and on.
Then came the Western television series.
The first series were some episodes of Bonanza, Have Gun Will Travel. The big series of what really put TV on the market here was the High Chaparral. They started filming in 1966. And for that set, they built a ranch house and a barn just to the east of where we're sitting now. They've become our classic sets here.
Recognize the backdrop behind PJ?
Oh, right now we're in front of our mission set. The original mission was built here in 1939 as part of the set for the movie Arizona. Over the years, it's been in probably 100 movies. Throughout the years up until 1985, it appeared as a small adobe Mexican-style church. In 1985, when they filmed The Three Amigos, they put the facade on it that you see now. And you'll probably recognize it most in the movie Tombstone, the opening scene where the cowboys ride into town and they kill the wedding party.
The park opened to tourists in 1960 when Midwest entrepreneur Robert Shelton took over. At one point, he even paved the park's western streets. But he was given an ultimatum by John Wayne after the actor found out about a horse riding accident that happened there.
There was an accident with a stunt rider making a hard right, slipped on the pavement, went down. John Wayne heard about that, said if he wanted John Wayne to do any more movies out here, he better remove the pavement, and they did.
From gunfights in the streets to a make-believe horse stampede that stirs up the dust. Today, tourists come by the thousands every year to see and experience that taste of the Wild West.
As Americans, we have always looked to the frontier. Americans have always been those that looked over the next hill. The Wild West, even though it was such a short period of time, like 30 years, so ingrained in our imagination as the frontier. And people still want that. They might live in New York City, they might be cheek to jowl with other people, but in their heart, they want to be on a horse riding off into the sunset.
You're in Wickenburg, Arizona, here at Ben's Saddlery, where we make all types of horse equipment. We build new saddles, we repair saddles, and build any type of accessories for horses. The shop's been here actually since around the early 50s. I went to work for Ben in 1983. I used to just kind of hang around, and they finally kind of put me to work part-time, and I didn't know anything. Everything that I learned here. Eventually I bought the store from Ben in 1988, and I've had it ever since. Saddle-wise, we probably build or repair more saddles than anybody in the Southwest. We're very, very proud that we know our stuff. Primarily out there, you have your pleasure riding saddles. You have a ranch type saddle, you have roping saddles. A lot of these kind of intermingle with one another. There's been a few of them that you just really, really wish that you'd like to hang on to it. It was such a pleasure to build. It was easy as far as everything just kind of clicked into place, and it did just the things that you wanted it to, like it was supposed to. And then some of them you just can't wait to to see go out the door before you set fire to them. I think that, you know, you could say that it is an art. It's a craft. I think that that profession itself is really it's starting to die because it's not something you're looking at as a money maker. You go into it with really a love of what you're doing and hope that that you or your wife have an extra job that can you know, can put food on the table. It's a tough business.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. Long before Old Tucson Studios opened, Hollywood directors flocked to one iconic Arizona location to film those big classic westerns. When it comes to diverse landscapes that are coupled with big blue, endless skies, nature has been very, very good to Arizona. When a young unknown actor named John Wayne first laid eyes on the incredible red sandstone towers of Monument Valley, he said, "So this is where God put the West." In the early 30s, local trading post owner Harry Goulding helped Hollywood and the rest of the world discover the magnificent Monument Valley.
Harry originally was just in the trading post business, but the Depression hit and things became very, very hard in this area. But he'd heard through the grapevine that a movie was going to be made, so he went to Hollywood to entice John Ford to come to Monument Valley and make the movie. Mrs. Gouldings told me that they they found their way to John Ford's office. When Harry got into the office, he asked the secretary there if he could see John Ford. And the secretary asked, "Do you have an appointment?" And Harry said, "Well, you know, at Monument Valley, I take time to see anybody that comes through our doors, and you know, I'm just here to talk to him." And she says, "Well, you still have to have an appointment." Or he just reached in the back of his pickup and got his bedroll and walked back into John Ford's office. And of course, when he gets back into John Ford's office, the secretary there says, "What is that? What are you doing with that?" And he says, "Well, this is my bedroll. I came to see John Ford, and I plan on staying here until I see John Ford." So the location manager comes out to toss Harry out of the office. Well, he had several pictures of Monument Valley that he took and spread out on the bench. Well, the location manager, he gets into John Ford's office, sees Harry and sees the pictures that he laid out on the bench, and immediately became interested in the pictures. And in just a matter of an hour, they had agreed to make the picture, the first one called Stagecoach.
A lot of my relatives did work with the film companies. When the film companies started coming in, our people would work as extras. This brought in a little bit of money. The publicity from the film companies, yes, that would bring people here. It has changed the lifestyle of these people here.
Walk into a pub or saloon off an Arizona highway, and you're bound to meet a character or two. And that's just how we met our new friend Fargo, who invited us out to his ranch. Out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere between Dos Cabezos and Wilcox, is Museum Ranch. Entering the ranch, I felt as if I was transported back in time to the days when John Wayne was headliner on the marquee and the old Western movie was the star of Tinseltown.
Well, we're here in Arizona, Wilcox, Arizona, a little place called Museum Ranch. We had a lot of equipment and things in there rented to production movie companies. People would go down the road or come by and they'd stop in and they'd say, "Well, what's this place?" "Well, it looks like a little, you know, a ranch, like a museum ranch," and that's how it got its name.
Fargo spent decades working in the movie industry, leasing and wrangling stock and animals, even driving his own antique wagons.
Furnished livestock and equipment to teams, wagons, saddle horses, small animals. And I even had a couple of fallen horses. Made those shots for my boy.
Step into Fargo's saloon, and it's a who's who of Western movies. Steve McQueen, John Wayne, Lee Marvin, even a former president.
Death Valley Days, where Western history comes alive.
First one I worked on was Death Valley Days, and Ronald Reagan was narrating it at the time. Before he was a gov, before he was a presidente, and got to meet him all 3 times. Very nice man. He's perfect. He's a horseman, and he liked people. He's very outgoing. He was a champion. He's a lot like John Wayne to me. I really admire him.
When asked about working with Sinatra, Fargo doesn't hold back.
I hate to say this, but you may not like it. It's Frank Sinatra. He was terrible. He and I didn't get along worth a damn. All those were found on horseback.
Just name a movie and Fargo will tell you a story.
The last one I did him was a thing called Rio Lobo. Head wrangler, Kenny Leakamore, says the Duke wants to talk to you. I had to go over to the motor home. He said, what do you want? I'm going to sell that little horse. I said, no, sir, he's rented to the company.
That's what bothers me.
And I can't sell him yet. He said, well, who do you think the company is? I'm the company. And I said, yes, sir, but I've got him leased to the company, and I can't sell him till the job's over. 2 or 3 days later, he said, I'm the company and I'm buying that horse. I said, I can't sell him till the job's over because I'm renting. I'd be stupid to rent him, sell him to you and lose my rent money. I wouldn't sell him the horse till the job was over.
Don't let this cowboy's rough exterior fool you. He has a bit of a soft spot for animals and is a steward of the environment.
I think I'd like to be maybe remembered as a kind of a curator of the land and the critters and whatnot.
When asked about the most valuable or interesting Western artifact in his collection,
A friend of mine brought these spurs. She found them at an estate sale. I imagine by the looks of them, the style of them, they're either from Argentina. This is pewter. I think as much of these as anything around here.
filmmakers have shot a couple of movies at the ranch. But today, Hollywood makes few Westerns, and Fargo no longer supplies stock for the movies.
The way they do movies today suits them fine. They can shoot around, get around a lot of obstacles that they couldn't do years ago, and that's fine in their own way.
Just another treasure we discovered 12 miles south of Wilcox and 100 years from city life.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
I've just been a strolling music man.
Never fails to amaze me how beautiful this country is and how gorgeous it is, especially if you're on horseback.
And that's when I let the music guide.
You get a lot of these people come out of the cities and everything, and they're so used to the rush of the city and everything. They get out here, and it's totally calm, it's quiet, you know, it's serene.
If you can get an 1,100 or 1,200 pound animal to treat you like a good friend, you've really accomplished something.
I almost feel like a cowgirl, not quite, but I'm getting there, I think.
We all turn into cowboys and cowgirls for 7 days, and we just love it here.
Whether you're a cowpoke, an urban cowboy, or a girl who occasionally likes to play one on TV, here in Arizona, our romance with the cowboy way is like a fire that you can never put out.
Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm Robin Sewell, and we'll see you on the next Arizona Highways.
Arizona highway, 4 corners to Mexico. They can set my spirit wandering.